After finishing Black Myth Wukong after months of gameplay, I've been left both stunned and disappointed in all of the bosses that this game had to offer, and today we'll get into what are truly the hardest of the hardest. Keep in mind that there are 107 bosses in this game, so it doesn't need to be said that it was difficult to choose just 10 of them for this video, but I think I've come up with a pretty good list, so without further delay, let's get right into it. At the number 10 spot, we have the Yaksha King. I originally thought that Red Boy was the final boss of this chapter, but when the Yaksha King came out of nowhere and slammed me on my first attempt at him, I thought it would take forever to kill, but turns out he actually wasn't that bad. He's difficult enough to earn the number 10 spot on this list, but that's mostly thanks to how unpredictable some of his attacks are. For example, he has a lot of attacks that are strung together in long combos and some that are delayed and stuff like that. Overall though, he didn't take me too long to defeat, and he sort of pales in comparison to some bosses higher up on this list. At the number 9 spot, we have the Black Loong. This little guy is on this list for a pretty embarrassing reason, which is that I couldn't figure out how to avoid this shockwave attack until 25 minutes into fighting him. Spoiler alert, you need to hop on one of the rocks in the arena. That one attack alone is what makes this boss difficult, but he has a couple other high damage attacks that can be difficult to read at this stage of the game as well. But overall, the Black Loong isn't terrible compared to the rest of the bosses on this list. At the number 8 spot, we have the Supreme Inspector. This boss is very interesting to say the least, and by interesting, I mean annoying. This fight takes about 100 years to finish, and that's not all attempts combined, that's just one. Because as you can see, this hand bird thing loves to just fly around and do tricks on his wheel and be a little piece of crap while you watch from the sidelines. This boss actually didn't take me that many attempts to defeat, but each attempt took forever because he just kept running away. In my opinion, this boss sucks, but his suckiness is what landed him at the number 8 spot on this list. At the number 7 spot, we have the gold armored Rhino. As you may have guessed just by looking at this guy, his main asset is his horn. He charges it up and shoots you with lightning and tries to ram you and all that, but if you can manage to sneak in a couple hits every now and then to his body, then this Rhino actually isn't so bad. It is worth noting though that you can actually break his horn with enough hits, but he'll regenerate it pretty quickly after, so it's not worth specifically focusing on that, but if you do manage to break it, then use all your offensive tactics at that moment to make sure you can get as much damage in as possible in that time. At the number 6 spot, we have the Cloud Treading Deer. I honestly have pretty mixed feelings about this boss. I think it's a very cool boss and I like that it has two phases, but I never figured out how to dodge some of his attacks, which was kind of annoying, but that's just a skill issue. It's also important to mention that this thing's arena was absolutely sick and stuck out compared to the rest of the main area of chapter 6. Now we're getting into the big guns. All the bosses from here on out took me over an hour to beat at least. At the number 5 spot, we have the Emerald Arm Mantis. This little guy is a very interesting boss. It's unique as in you have to go into the gut of your little buddy here to fight the Mantis, leading to him having this super gross arena. In terms of difficulty, this boss packs a serious punch. A lot of his attacks won't do too much damage to you instantly, but the main factor contributing to this guy being so high on the list is his combos and unpredictable attack patterns. This guy has long combos, and memorizing his attack patterns is extremely difficult. He's beatable, but also very annoying sometimes. At the number 4 spot, we have Yellowbrow. This boss was really no joke. It was the hardest in the game until that point, and actually took me a while to beat. The first two phases of this guy are pretty easy, but the third is very difficult. Him constantly becoming invincible to any attacks and not letting you use Immobilize is extremely annoying. I'm not a big fan of this boss whatsoever because all of his little cheesy gimmicks and tricks he pulls on you to make the fight seem unfair, but at least the cutscene after defeating him is cool. Holding the number 3 slot is the Yellow Loong. The Yellow Loong is the last boss of the Loong series, but he really ended this sequence of bosses well. Not only is this boss fight very difficult, but it's also very fun and feels fair. He really doesn't have too many attacks, but as the fight goes on, they evolve and you kinda have to memorize which phase has which attack patterns. The transformation that you get from this guy as a reward is really good, but I don't understand what's going on in this cutscene or why this guy is here now, but that doesn't matter because this boss is great. At the number 2 spot, we have the 100-Eyed Daoist Master. I feel like this boss definitely deserves to be this high on the list. He packs a serious punch with every attack, is extremely fast, and has his fair share of attacks and gimmicks. Phase 1 is one thing, but if you can't handle that, then you'll be in for a rude awakening in Phase 2. The combination of all of his hard hitting and quick attacks makes this boss very difficult. The cutscene surrounding this boss is very cool though, so it's all worth it in the end. Finally, the hardest boss in Black Myth Wukong is the final boss, the Great Sage's Broken Shell. If you fought this boss, then you'll know what I'm talking about. This boss took me over 2 hours and 30 minutes to defeat and really made me question if I would ever beat this game for a while. The first phase is not incredibly difficult at all, but in the second fight, the shell gains a bunch of new attack patterns, a bunch more health, and basically everything becomes much more complicated. For example, this pokey attack, this slamming attack, and this cloud are all just examples of crazy things this guy does to mess with you. Overall though, this boss is worth it and feels pretty fairly difficult and is a great ending to this amazing game. Anyway, those are the top 10 hardest bosses in Black Myth Wukong. I hope you guys enjoyed and agreed with most of my choices. Some of you might say that Erlang Shen should have been on this list, but I want to preemptively say that that guy wasn't as difficult for me as he was for other people for some reason. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.